Well, good evening, church family. I do hope that we're all continuing to do well and stay safe. I apologize for the more comfortable setup here tonight, but I thought the lighting might be a little bit better than in front of my desk there. But I do hope that we're all continuing to do well. I hope that you are blessed and encouraged by our time together on Sunday mornings. Again, I know it's not ideal. There's a lot of hoops we have to go through to make it work, but I do hope that you are blessed and encouraged by being there and studying together with fellow Christians. I want to bring some prayer requests to the forefront tonight. This person individually, I don't know them myself, but one of my sister-in-law's co-workers is currently in the hospital. They were rushed there last night. They've been in critical condition since then, and the last report I heard is that they are not doing that well. I don't know all the details. I don't know what their current condition is or what it might be by the time that this goes uploaded, and that you are able to watch it. But I would like to ask that you lift them up in prayer. Lift that individual up, lift up their family as they're going through this, and lift up the doctors that are working with them, and pray for a good outcome to arise from all of this. But please do keep that family in your prayers, and do continue to pray for our nation, for our world, as we continue to deal with this global pandemic that we are currently facing. In fact, I believe it was announced just this morning that many stores like Walmart and Sam's and Kroger are all requiring their patrons to wear masks inside of those stores now, because the COVID-19 cases are continuing to spike, especially down here in the South. We're seeing so many rises in that. And so I want to encourage everybody to remember to be safe, to take the necessary precautions, wear masks, wash your hands, all that stuff. Do what's best for the safety of you and your family. Because this is it's a very trying and difficult time for us in this world, and especially us as Americans, it seems. We have a lot going on in our nation right now, and so as tensions are high and aggression seems to be higher than usual, I want to just remind us, as Christians, that we have a duty to be kind and to be gentle and compassionate in whatever situation we find ourselves facing. And I say that as a reminder to us tonight, and myself included in all of this, because as I've seen these announcements happen over the course of today, the reaction to this announcement of having to wear masks inside those stores has been pretty mixed. It's pretty polarizing, as most things are these days. Any sort of announcement or news is going to draw a very mixed reaction from many groups of people, and this is no exception. Several of these responses have been very heavily opinionated, to put it kindly there, and it seems that many who are voicing their opinions on this matter, who are against having to wear masks inside of Walmart or Kroger, are, in a very broad, generalized sense, stereotypically conservative in their views, it seems. In fact, one reason I can claim that in good faith is that many of them claim to be Christians, followers of Christ, who are adamantly opposed to this idea of having to wear a mask as they enter the store. And I'm not here tonight to cast judgment or to point fingers or to ridicule or make fun of anybody in any way. What I'm aiming to do tonight is just bring to light how, again, we as Christians should hopefully be able to take a step back from these situations and identify them for what they are and look at the bigger picture. Because to be quite frank, several of these people who are claiming to be Christians and also aggressively voicing their concerns about having to wear a mask inside the stores, it's pretty embarrassing as somebody who also bears the name of Christ along with them. And talks like this have been going on since before this announcement today. Since this COVID pandemic began, these have been many talking points, how especially we as Americans are having our rights infringed, how wearing masks and all these policies are unnecessary, how they are controlling us in a way, how we're losing the freedoms to do what we want when we want to do them. And there are even some people, specifically Christians again, crying out that we are being persecuted, that the American church is being persecuted because we're having to wear masks different places and follow policies and follow guidelines as we go throughout our day-to-day activities. And again, I'm not here to debate the validity of those claims or say they're invalid. But what I would like to do tonight is kind of just, again, allow us as Christians to take a step back, kind of put things in perspective, and hopefully realize that there seems to be a whole lot of outcry over nothing. You know, something that's not a very big deal. Christians, it seems, more vocally than anybody, are getting so up in arms over. And, you know, whether we think that wearing a mask is unnecessary or uncomfortable or a sign of weakness or whatever it may be, it's not fun. I don't like wearing a mask when I go to church or when I go to the store. But I still do it because not only are we required to do so, but it's not a big deal. You know, the world's not going to come to an end because we have to wear a piece of fabric over our face for the half hour that we're in Walmart for the afternoon. And it is the least that we can do to help each other out in this very difficult time. You know, we, especially in the South, have grown kind of desensitized and lax to this whole pandemic thing that we are now facing because it wasn't really affecting us when it first got here. And so we kind of just followed the guidelines and nothing really happened, and so it seems like we grew kind of relaxed about it. Maybe even began to doubt it a little bit. And so now that it's finally worked its way here and we really haven't been taking it that seriously, we're seeing that spike, that rise again, more than other places that took it seriously and were able to manage it a little bit better than it seems like we have. But whenever new policies or announcements or news like this, like being required to wear a mask, are announced, especially like the one today, it usually, again, in a very broad, generalized, stereotypical sense, seems to incite a unnecessarily vitriolic reaction from people who claim to be Christians, who claim to be following Christ. People who are crying out that they are enduring modern-day persecution because they have to wear a piece of fabric, because they have to wear a mask. And so again, I don't want to cast judgment. I've said that a lot tonight because I hope that my point comes across. That's not what I'm doing. But I'd like for us to take a look back and think back to Christians who did suffer persecution. You know, Christians who were set on fire while they were still alive because they professed that Jesus Christ was their Lord and Savior. Christians who were fed to wild animals because they said they believed in the resurrected Christ. Christians who were crucified for their faith in Christ Jesus. And even, you know, that's an old ancient world example, but even Christians today around the world in nations less fortunate than ours, who are hunted down and imprisoned and tortured and beheaded just because they follow Jesus Christ. And yet here we are crying out persecution because, again, we have to wear a piece of fabric over our mouths and noses for the half hour that we're wandering around inside Kroger. And so whenever people cry out about this situation, about having to do things that they don't want to do, it makes me go back to Jesus' teachings in the Sermon on the Mount, something that we're studying in our Sunday morning Bible class there at Southside. So this may be treading familiar ground, but I'd like for us to revisit that tonight and kind of put into perspective again what Jesus says there, because there in Matthew chapter 5 verses 40 through 42, Jesus gives a very difficult command for us as Christians to follow. Jesus says there, "And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you." Now, that's not a perfect analogy for our current situation. Jesus had specific things in mind he was getting across in this section, but I think the principle still applies just like it did 2,000 years ago when Jesus taught this. You know, we are very privileged here in America to be able to have a very individualistic, self-centered mindset because of the great wealth and prosperity that we find here. Because we live in a country that protects our freedoms, the freedoms to do what we want to do, to say what we want to say, to go where we want to go, and all sorts of great privileges and blessings like that. But it seems like because of that, when it gets to the point where people ask us to do things we don't want to do, we get so hung up on being Americans first that we kind of forget we're supposed to be Christians first. I'd like to paraphrase a bit of what Jesus said there to maybe fit our situation. If Jesus were addressing us in a modern day Sermon on the Mount, he might say something like, if someone requires you to wear a mask, then wear gloves as well. Or he might say something like, if someone forces you to wash your hands for 20 seconds with soap and water, then wash them for 40 seconds. And then use hand sanitizer afterwards. You know, it's basically the point that Jesus made with that section, the point that I hope I'm getting across tonight is that when we are asked to do stuff that we don't want to do, we as Christians have this challenging obligation to go the extra mile in doing those very things. And you know, what we're being asked to do is, again, not a big deal. Jesus brought up points here like if somebody's suing you and wants to take your clothes, or someone wants you to drag something that they're carrying for over a mile, do them. You know, in comparison, again, wearing a piece of fabric on our faces, it's not really comparable. And so the point that Jesus makes here that I hope I'm making is go the extra mile when we are asked to do these things that we don't think are fun, that we don't want to do. And again, I'm not trying to point fingers or debate the helpfulness or functionality of all these different policies that we've been getting over the past several months. But based on the outcry that I've seen on social media from performing these, again, very simple tasks, you know, I hope and pray that we as Christians are known as kind people, as gentle people, people who are compassionate and empathetic towards a plight that we are all facing in the world right now. And I hope and pray that we as Christians are not known as a group who are rude and mean and stubborn and rebellious and complaining and crying persecution because, again, we have to wear a piece of fabric over our mouths and noses or can't go inside and eat at a restaurant. And I do hope and pray and believe that I am preaching to the choir tonight on this very subject. But I want to thank you again for your time and attention tonight. Again, this is not an ideal Wednesday night, but I hope that this has been beneficial for you, encouraged and motivated you to get out there and be the best person you can be, the best follower of Christ you can be, and reminder to continue to be safe, to take precautions, and to be blessed and bless others in our lives. But thank you again, and Lord willing, I'll see you all on Sunday morning.